Welcome to Physio Academy. Today let us start with a new topic, that is resting membrane potential. Resting membrane potential is the potential difference across the cell membrane in a resting condition. Again, repeat with me, what is resting membrane potential? It is just a potential difference across the cell membrane in a resting condition. To understand this thing in a better way, let me give you an example. Suppose I have this cathode ray oscilloscope, that is a device which is used to measure the potential difference across the cell membrane. And if I put both of its electrode over the surface of a nerve or a muscle fiber, then the net potential difference is zero initially. But as soon as I insert one of the electrode inside the cell membrane, definitely I get some potential difference across the cell membrane. And if I use a specific terminology for it, so a specific terminology for it is that it is a polarized state of a muscle in which resting membrane potential is constant. That is polarized state in which the negativity is more inside and positivity is more outside the cell membrane. But knowing these things about the resting membrane potential is not enough. So let's get started with the ionic basis of resting membrane potential to understand this thing in a better way. So as you can see the diagram behind me, I have mentioned positivity and negativity. Negativity is more inside and positivity is more outside. And in the center I have drawn a cell membrane. Cell membrane with many channels and with the sodium potassium pump in the center. As well as there are leak channels also that I will explain later what are the leak channels. But for now, let us understand that how does ionic basis helps in maintenance and development of resting membrane potential. So the two processes, that is development and maintenance of the resting membrane potential, it is because of the movement of ions across the cell membrane. So the movement of ions creates what? It creates ionic imbalance. So these ionic imbalance is mainly achieved by sodium potassium pump and the selective permeability of the channels which are present in the cell membrane. Again, those two factors which are responsible for the ionic imbalance. Do remember this thing. First is sodium potassium pump and second is selective permeability of channels present in the cell membrane. So let's take the first one, that is sodium potassium pump. As we know that sodium and potassium ions, they are actively transported exactly in the opposite directions, which means that 3 sodium ions, they are pumped outside of the cell and the 2 potassium ions, they are moved inside of the cell. But what happens that after some time there will be net deficit of the positivity inside the cell membrane. That is, positivity is less and negativity is more. Another reason for increase in the negativity is that presence of protein ions. So protein ions, these are the negative ions which helps in the development of negativity inside the cell membrane. Second thing is about the selective permeability of channels which are present in the cell membrane. So channels are very selective for the particular ions. Channels will not allow all the ions, all the substances to pass through it. It is very selective. So to understand this thing, let me give you an idea of the channels which are selective for the negative ions. So negative ions like sulfate, phosphorus, proteins, those are the negatively charged ions. But those channels, particularly for the anions or the negative ions, they are mainly closed. So the ions, they remain inside the cell membrane. But another channels and the new concept, that is leak channels or the leaky channels. So the leak channels mainly are for the sodium, potassium and the chloride ions. So sodium and the chloride ions, concentration of these two ions, it is more outside of the cell, and the potassium ion, they are more inside of the cell. So because of the leak channels, sodium ions, after being pumped outside of the cell, they diffuse back inside of the cell. So which means that sodium ion will move inside and the potassium ions will be moved outside or the diffuses outside the cell membrane. So this creates an ionic imbalance. Channels for the chloride ion, they mainly remain closed all the time, but sodium ion channels and the potassium ion channels, they remain open. But for the sodium ion channels, these type of leak channels, they are only open when any stimulus is applied. So I will explain when I will take the topic on action potential, that how does the sodium leak channels work. But for now, keep in mind that sodium ion channels, these are closed all the time until a stimulus is applied to it. So the only channel remaining, which is potassium channels. Potassium ion channels, they remain open all the time. So potassium ion diffuses outside of the cell, and which helps in the increase in the negativity inside the cell membrane. And after some time, the potassium efflux, that is movement of the potassium ion outside the cell membrane, which will stop. So why does it stop? So the reason number one is positive ions, which are increase in concentration outside the cell membrane, okay, they repel each other. So that is the first reason why does the potassium efflux stops. And the second reason, that is all the negative ions inside the cell membrane, they attract the positive potassium ions. So that is the reason that the potassium efflux is stopped. So that is all about the concept of ionic basis in the resting membrane potentials. So if you have any doubts regarding the concept, do let me know in the comment section. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, and do like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you so much.